I'm looking for a group of people that I'm not sure even exists. This message is wild. This came from someone named Selena. She didn't want to be tagged out of fear of ridicule, which I completely understand. People can be mean on the internet. But she says that when she was later in her teenage years, she started having very vivid dreams about a group of 5 or so friends who she would hang out with night after night in the astral realm. And she's not sure if these people walk this earth, but she dreamed about them with such consistency that she was sure that she developed real friendships with them. All of these people in this dream realm were around her age or a little bit older, but they would do normal teenage things. They would go to parties, they would play party games, they would go out in the woods and walk around at night because they couldn't get into anywhere else. And all of these dreams stopped when she was 17, so she can't remember everyone's name, but she knows that one of the girls' names started with a T, maybe something like Tasha, and she knows that one of the guys was named Mark. And in this dream realm, she knows that Mark and Tasha were growing closer. Mark actually remarked to her on one occasion that he wanted to ask Tasha out on a date. And in the dream realm, she remembers them actually getting together and witnessing their relationship blossom. She remembers Tasha gushing about how sweet Mark was and Mark saying how much he liked her. And she said she really enjoyed the company of all of these people, but especially Mark and Tasha. She remembers feeling like, I'm so happy they finally got together. When the dreams about this friend group stopped, she said that she grieved these people like they were real. She said she wasn't sure why these dreams about this friend group stopped, but when they did stop, it was abrupt. There was no goodbye, and she felt like she lost a part of herself. And she says all of this happened around 2016, but life sort of passed, and as it moved on, she sort of forgot about this friend group. But after she graduated high school, she felt lonely and like she was still missing this core friend group who she had spent so much time with. But in May of 2026, so pretty recently actually, she said she was trying to get more in touch with her spiritual side and she started listening to the Gateway tapes. That is a whole other rabbit hole, which I could probably go into in another video if y'all are interested. But it was around the time that she started listening to the Gateway tapes that she had another experience with this friend group. And she wasn't even thinking about that or trying to find them again. It just sort of happened symbiotically with her experience listening to these tapes. And so one night a few months ago, she falls asleep and she finds herself sort of traveling in the astral realm, like through what feels like layers, and she sort of comes to in her own body in a shopping mall. And there's also a lot of theories about mall world in dreamland, but she said she woke up in the dream in this mall, and even though she had never been there in real life, she knew the layout, and in her mind she actually worked there and she was clocking out of her shift. She walks out of the store where she works in mall world, right? And she knows that she's meeting up with her best friend from real life named Charla. Charla is already waiting for her in the food court of this mall. And she walks up to her and she greets her. And as they're sitting there talking, another woman walks up. And she doesn't recognize this woman, but this woman looks at her very strangely. She says her face was normal. It wasn't particularly beautiful or ugly, but there was just something about her that seemed off. And this woman was also dressed head to toe in red. Her best friend walks off to do something and she finds herself alone with this red woman. And she says, oh, I'm just standing here waiting on some people. And the red woman says, I'm waiting on some people too. And they sort of figured out that they were waiting on the same people, although in this dreamscape, she didn't know who exactly they were waiting on. And then suddenly she spots them, and the same 5 people from the friend group that she used to dream about come walking up to her and the red woman. And they're smiling broadly, and they start saying, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. Where have you been all these years? They say, we missed you so much. Where have you been? We couldn't find you. And they have aged. They are now around the same age that Selena is in real life. And she asks about Mark and Tasha, and they're smiling and they're like, we've gotten engaged. Selena is telling them, I'm so sorry, I couldn't find you either. I've missed you so much. And they all end up talking for what feels to be like 2 or 3 hours. She keeps apologizing. She keeps saying, I'm so sorry, I couldn't find you. And Tasha is reassuring her that it's fine, that she has nothing to be ashamed of, that she's just happy that they can all reconnect now. She says that's what good friends are for. We're always able to reconnect regardless of the time that passes. And Selena feels a lot lighter. And then suddenly the whole vibe changes. Suddenly the friend group starts to look nervously around the mall, and the light seems to dim, and they start telling Selena that she needs to keep her voice down, and this isn't going to be the last time that they see each other, but it's going to be the last time for a while. Suddenly Tasha grabs Selena's arm and she says, don't be suspicious or they'll find you. And the red woman is still sitting there this entire time, and she also grabs Selena's arm. She says, it's time to go. They're here. Walk normal until you get home, and under no circumstance should you look back. Go. Selena realizes that this dream is turning into a nightmare, and so she says her goodbyes, and though she doesn't entirely understand what's going on, she starts to head out of the mall, and as she's walking, she hears someone running behind her, and not thinking, she turns around to look. And that's when she describes seeing a shadowy figure wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a duster jacket sprinting toward her. He grabs her by her upper arms, and for a moment he's just staring into her eyes, and then he seems to shift his gaze to something behind her, and she hears this flat male voice in her head almost telepathically say, "They're here." And in that moment, she says she felt jerked out of her body and she woke up in her own bed. Of course, the first thing she did was call her best friend Charlotte, and she tells her about the dream, and Charlotte says, "That's weird. I think I've dreamed about the red lady as well." She remembers her as being a woman of about 26, wearing a red jacket, but she can't remember the details of which they met. But she said she's writing this to ask if anyone knows about who the woman in red is, about the man in the hat and why he appeared to her, and hopefully to find these friends if they're real. She says maybe if these people are out there, they'll see this video and reach out in the comments, and then she can connect with them in real life as well, so they can sort of put together the pieces of the layers of these dreams. She said that these people would be max 32 years old now in 2026. She knows that at the time of the last dream, Mark was working a 9-to-5 and a man that she calls T was studying. She said, "I just want to know if these people even exist in the same plane as me, and also who was the woman in red and why did she warn me not to look back?" Regarding the man in the hat, is he different from the Hat Man, or is he the same entity that she claims to have seen standing at the edge of her bed in her college years? Why was he running after her? Was he trying to get her, or was he trying to protect her from something else that was unseen in the same dream? Let her know your thoughts. That is her real name, but like I said, she didn't want to be tagged because she didn't want to be ridiculed. If you have a spooky, scary story time that you think no one would believe, or that you just want community feedback on, please send it in. We would love to hear it.